Let's do it again. It's the Rock Doctor's prescription for peak performance. Mike Schwartz, CSCS, HLC, and PN. You know what they stand for now, the trusted authority on muso wellness. A quick overview of where we're going with the presentation. So in the first half, we're going to touch on generals of a healthy lifestyle and more importantly, why we should care about that and how it affects our lives as creatives, musicians, performers, whatever it is you do related to the music business. We've got some helpful tips for you. We'll jump into physical movement, talk about relieving some common sources of pain for musicians and performers, again, or even just everyday life. And then we'll move to nutrition, treating nutrition as full, how your diet factors into your health, well-being, and ultimately your performances. We'll take some questions at that point. And then when we come back, we'll talk about your performance mindset, kind of unite the body and mind aspects together with some key tips, including 3 keys to peak performance. And then at the end, we'll open it up, as we said, to questions. I've got a couple questions that are coming in already. Please keep those coming. Any point, more than welcome. We are here for you. Here we go, Mike. What is a healthy lifestyle, and how does Dr. Starrett's quote factor into what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I've followed Dr. Kelly Starrett for quite some time. He was actually one of the first gateways into physical well-being, and the factor there, all human beings should have the ability to perform basic maintenance on themselves. That plays into one of the 3 pillars that I talk about when it comes to health and wellness, being movement. So I do talk about 3: movement, nutrition, and mindset. And for those of you who have my first book, that's what it's based around. Is I truly believe that all humans should be able to take care of themselves, especially ourselves as musicians. We're doing physical things. So how does this play to us? Well, if we're going to be doing this career for a long time with any hope of not experiencing too much pain, you better hope like heck you got the ability to take care of yourself. So the quote itself explains that we generally sit way too much, and even when we are playing, most of the time we are seated, right? Or we're rocking out and moving around and increasing different movement patterns that may not be as conducive to physical well-being as we'd like. What I've seen for a lot of it, I just made some notes on that with regards to sitting for large chunks of the day. We shorten different muscles, most notably right here. Common spot is known as the hip flexor, but it's kind of the layman's term. It's the psoas. So we get really tight low back, we get really tight in through the hips, and our butt becomes a seat cushion. With that said, it's not really great when you go up and you want to be active and we think, hey, let's go for a run, and then we tweak something because our body hasn't been prepped in the sense. So in an effort to make exercise and movement a little bit better for you, we're going to show you some different tools that you can take on the road or in the studio to make sure that you are taking care of yourself from the physical side. All right. With that, you made a great note on here too, is better attention to the body, happier, healthier life, pain-free. Right. So that's the idea right there. Moving forward with that too, we want to talk about the relationship with food and nutrition, because without solid fuel, no sense in driving the car, right? If you're going to load up your car with mink oil, it's not going to operate very well. We want to make sure that the nutrition isn't focused around, very commonly, the short-term goals. That's why we see a lot of, anyways, I see a lot of the diet, the quick fix. How do I lose 10 pounds in 6 weeks? 6-minute abs, that kind of crap. And it's not conducive to a long-term lifestyle. So I want to show us different ways that we can incorporate behavioral change with regards to our food intake and different types of foods that are more conducive to long-term performance, where we're talking about why we're eating the things and why those nutrition points are so key to fuel the performance as well. We tend to, like I said, we base our nutrition off the short-term stuff, and it's not conducive to a long lifestyle. Right? If you want to bump ahead, let's see if we can
roll on.
Can we jump to the next one?
Yeah,
lifestyle right in there. And then just we're talking about like actual the mindset And that's where the healthy lifestyle, because it doesn't matter, again, we talk about physical well-being, sure, our wrists hurt, we take some good food, we feel better, we're sleeping more, but now how do we deal with the stresses of the lifestyle? The lifestyle itself, there's so much more than just emotional stress, work stress. There's physical, there's chemical, electromagnetic, mental, which is that psychological stuff, nutritional, so the food that you're eating, and thermal. So like if you're hot or cold, that's going to put stress onto your body. The thing that's important with a healthy lifestyle is that stress doesn't care. All of these 6 points here, it doesn't like segregate. Your body doesn't go, okay, we're going to put thermal stress over in this pile. Well, we've got physical stress. So you're going to the gym too much. You're going to put that stress over here. You got a bad relationship with your boss at work. We're going to put that over here. No, it doesn't matter. It summates. It puts all of that stress into one big, huge pile. So the more stressed we are in other areas, it contributes to the other areas. So we have to find ways to manage that. And the first thing I think of is language. A lot of people say, I struggle with stress. Well, of course, you're always going to struggle as long as you think that you're struggling. We want to battle that stress, make it more like a you versus, you get the dukes up and you're ready to rock and roll. So language plays a big role of that. And we can talk about that a little bit further into the actual presentation and how to channel that stress into more of a positive energy so that you can use it. So especially when we're talking about our show, use that stress, not so much as anxiety, performance anxiety, but performance energy. So you've got just a kick-ass show. Right?
That's I'm pretty sure that was the line that stood out to me most, both in your presentation at CMAO week, but also for this, is just that idea of channeling stress into positive energy. Like I've got to think that's something that people probably think of as being kind of revolutionary when you first present it to them. That just seems so counter to what we typically think of when we think about being stressed.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And that's a part about my job I absolutely love. It's like I haven't worked a day in my life because of that right there. You get direct feedback when you can make an aha moment like that, when people realize that, oh, wait, I can get up on stage and I can actually have the power. And it's not like an overnight thing. Like I teach tools to give you that so that you can start to see how your language shapes your behavior, which turns into your actions. And a lot of it comes down to visualization and imagery. And we're going to get into some of those exercises that I like to do with artists right before the show so they can start to use that. Like they're buzzing, their hands are just electric. How do we channel that into something that's going to be beneficial instead of the worry? Now, I've said this before. There's depression, there's anxiety, and depression is focusing and worrying about the things in the past. Whereas anxiety is worrying about the things that are in the future that are out of your control. And we want to live right here. And I think the present is a gift. It's right here, right? Mm-hmm. So it's we got to worry about that, what we can do and how we can channel that energy right here and now. And the tools that I teach focus on kind of, it sounds weird and wacky, but being in that moment long before it ever exists. Like this presentation myself, I've run this thing three or four times between now and 2 days ago before. So I already know how things are going to happen. So whenever you get up into a performance, if you can imagine best case scenario, that's where we go. So when we channel that stress, it's like, this is a game changer. That's the be all end all. It's like, this is the game changer. If we can find a way to have a positive outlook towards all of our presentations, all of our performances, and that's not just on the stage, that's just like showing up for people day to day. If we can have those really positive emotions invoked instead of getting worried about it, you just open yourself up for being expansive. It's awesome.
Love it. Okay, so yeah, we're moving in to physicality here. Really quickly though, Patty had a question and just want to go through it quickly. Patty says, you say wellness, how can we stay healthy? She's a lyricist and spoken word artist, has asthma, getting up there in the years. It gets worn out a bit easier, which is totally cool. I don't even know that we will. I'll tell you what though, Patty, is I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to feed directly into kind of a wide reaching answer to your question. So let's just keep going with the presentation. And if you've got anything specific to zoom in on, please keep the comments coming. But yeah, back to this. Let's talk about movement and springboard right into some stuff that hopefully can help Patty out, or at least get her thinking about some related solutions.
Yeah, I see that question there too, and I think we can touch on that. I can kind of curb an answer around that, so hopefully get a well-rounded answer around that. Biggest thing that I see is that a lot of focus is put on what I can do and export. A lot of us get wrapped up in how much we have to go to the gym, how much we have to go exercise, and like it's overwhelming and overbearing for a lot of people. That most of us, like, we're asking to go from 0 days a week in the gym or any physical kind of contact to, oh, I have to have 6 days a week, because that's how it is. And it's not like that at all. It's not this or that. It's increasing 1% every day. And we're going to come to that near the end. So just understand a lot of the stuff that's going to be really beneficial for addressing things like asthma and well-being is just taking care of yourself and whatever that looks like to you. So the best exercise is what you enjoy, right? So hopefully we'll kind of address that throughout the presentation here as we move through the movement. A lot of the factors that I've seen, and this is like the surface stuff, people come to me and they say, how do I improve said shoulder? I've got back pain, I've got asthma, things like that. How can I get better at my instrument without, torquing off the deep end and just being like give up on music all over? And a lot of the stuff comes down to overstrain injury. Very common with musicians. And this is the easiest thing. I've developed kind of a formula of doing the 5-minute fixes. And I picked this up as kind of my go-to when I first got into the personal training industry. I was the guy that had basically a fix for anybody with like a sore spot, and we could have immediate reaction. So I wanted to share with the folks here on the webinar some of those fixes. The most common, and again, referencing back to my first book, The Musician's Guide to Surviving the Rockstar Lifestyle, we see our neck and shoulders, we see wrist and elbows, and we also see lower back and hips. And that's just because of our tendency to hold things like this with a bit of a shrug. If you guys can see me, and I'm pretty sure everybody can see me here, our posture is never really spot on for the most part. Some people are great, but 90% of us, we slouch, we've got rolled shoulders just with our sedentary lifestyles.
Guilty.
So with musicians, yeah, you see shoulders, neck, you see back and wrists and things like that, where one of the quickest little fix, if there is anybody, like I'm sure everybody's experiencing that. So I'll just get into maybe the wrist one. Is actually I forgot my drumstick. Hang one sec.
Oh, I should have like 60s waiting room music.
I know, right? Yeah, well, getting too fast for you anyways. Anyway, I've got a drumstick. So for those of you who do have the video option on here, you'll be able to see it. And it's known as the party trick. You go underhand on, you can do this with a broomstick as well. I like the drumsticks because most of you either have drummers in the band or you've got something like this. But if you don't, you can have any sort of implement that's like a drumstick, a little bit longer. You can use a broomstick. You can also go with like a hockey stick, anything that's going to be like this. But basically, underhand grip, and the whole point of this is to go from underhand grip to overhand grip without taking your hands off of the actual tool. Okay, so the way that this looks, and this is great for everything through the shoulder spiral, is taking that under like so, and then you look super uncomfortable like that. And what this does is it really addresses right from the point of your wrist all the way up through to your elbow and addresses your shoulder spiral. So the shoulder spiral is something that's very, very crucial. Being that that's a ball and socket joint, we want to make sure that that thing can move. Oftentimes, if I'm standing like this, you'll see people slouchy like this. This is very, very common. Rolled shoulders, and we want to be able to pull those shoulders back and have a full range of motion through our shoulders. In doing so, folks that have wrist problems, we address their shoulders and their wrist problems go away. This drill is really, really great for it. What I recommend is 2 or 3 times back and forth like this, and then just holding for about 30 seconds or as long as you can bear it. For some people, 10 seconds is enough. It just screams through the forearms and wrists. So that's a really, really great one to address and stretch out forearms, elbows, all the way up into the shoulder. Is that helpful there, Andrew?
Absolutely. And quick shout out to Los Cabos, those pink 5As, support breast cancer research. I got a pair on my snare in the other room.
Heck yeah, there you go. Yeah, these guys are my homies. Big shout out to them. They were doing a great job. They got some people in here, so shout out to the drum fam. I myself am a Los Cabos artist, but yeah, these guys don't go too far without me. I love the pink sticks too. So yeah, that's the first one that I really like to, because that's an easy one. A lot of people, guitarists, doesn't matter what you're doing. A lot of people are really tight through the shoulders just because of posture. Even if you're not a musician, you're sitting there with your shoulders there. So this is a great one where you can just start to feel what like your shoulder should be actually feeling like, like opened up, right? So that's a really, really great one right there. So yeah, let's, where should we go here for that one there, Andrew?
Keep going. Yeah. If folks want maybe another example or two, we can revisit. And it's also, you know, we don't want to give away the full spread here. Mike does a lot of presentations. He's mentioned his books. So we'll let you know, if you want to go further down some of these rabbit holes, we can absolutely look after you. But let's keep going here. We're casting a wide net. I love it. We touched on nutrition a bit earlier on the wider aspect of a healthy lifestyle, but here we go. Treating nutrition as fuel for your body, something that came up when we were talking to Teresa Cirillo last month, friend of Mike, Small World, was about inflammatory versus anti-inflammatory substances. Can you, walk us through on that first point, and we can jump into greens and omegas?
Yeah. So inflammatories, a lot of folks, our typical diet is full of inflammatory food, being that we're highly processed, highly sugar, super convenient, everything that comes in a box. Like the first question for people when they ask me, I don't know how to read a label. I'm like, well, real food doesn't actually have a label. That's your first giveaway, right? So raw food is the stuff that we want to be aiming for more often than not. Now, is that realistic? Not all the time. Especially when we're touring on the road. There's some really, really great resources. I've actually partnered up with Catherine Hummel of Hummel Wellness, and her and I write a lot for Unison blog as well. So you can find resources all over the place. I've also got it, it's on a couple of my bios. I believe it's on my Instagram bio too, where we've got a link to farmer markets across the US, farmer markets across Canada. The important thing to remember with food is that you've got an anti-inflammatory food, things like ginger, turmeric, good kale, like greens, leafy greens. Why these things are great is because no matter how much you're stretching and maybe exercising, if you're experiencing inflammation like soreness, swelling, all of that, your body is telling you something. It's not getting the right nutrients in there. We want to put anti-inflammatories into our diet so that we can start to relieve some of this swelling. We can start to relieve some of this and have a better recovery. That's the biggest thing, is that if we're sleeping well, we're moving well, and we're eating well, our body is going to be flushed out and ready to go each and every time. Why is that important to you as a creative? Because on show 1 of 2-week tour, you want to be fresh. On show 10 of 2-week tour, you still want to be just as fresh, right? So over time, if you're eating crap that has a lot of inflammatory food in there, you're eating processed stuff, picking up Tim's, drinking tons of coffee, all the stuff that we've all been there. I'm sure I've definitely been culprit. Over time, your body doesn't actually repair. Okay, so that's why it's super important. When we talk into the specifics about it, I want you guys to focus on 2 servings per day of greens. So that can be in an omelet, that can be in a salad, it can be a spinach, it can be kale, it can be leafy greens are going to be the best. Now, why are they so great is they're neuroprotective. So they act kind of like security, letting in the good guys, keeping out the bad stuff so that the cells of the brain can actually develop and continually grow. That's super important for us as creatives because we tend to want to be creative. And in order to be creative, we need growth of the cells and the membrane in our brain. So minimum 2 times per day, okay? And I'd like you to see like at least 5. Like it's easy once you get it in there. It's just stocking your fridge full of good whole foods. Go to the farmer's market. Ask me. I'll link you all of these resources so you don't have any excuses and you can get some real raw organic food if you can. That's the best way to go. Omegas, so things like fish oil, that's really great if we are vegan or vegetarian too. We want to kind of experiment. There's krill, there's tons of good plankton and algae, stuff like that. It takes a little bit of a conversion, so it's not a complete source right away, but it's still a heck of a lot better than most of us. We don't eat enough omega-3s. Now, the omegas are super important. There was actually a landmark study of over 6,000 people that was published actually in the Archives of Neurology that found that people with the low quantities, and that's where this quote comes to, of omega-3s had 70% greater risk of developing Alzheimer's than those that actually ate 2 grams. It only took 2 grams a day to reverse the effects, or less likely to be to succumb to degenerative brain disease such as Alzheimer's, which is pretty powerful stuff. So it's brain food, right? So each fish, got it in eggs, you can get it in krill and algae. So there's lots of different options out there. Again, if you do want to follow up with that and you're more interested in the ins and outs, fire me a note and I'll be happy to send you some more resources for that.
Oh, right on. Well, I'll jump in quick just to ask, like, other than, say, salmon, which always comes to mind for me, what are some other more or less common sources of omega-3s? And by extension, is just a straight kind of omega-3 supplement recommended if, as an easy workaround?
Yeah, great questions. I see that one a lot too. Another fish that's super high on that, especially over here in Australia, we've got a ton of mackerel. Mackerel is just really, really great. So holy mackerel is actually, I guess it goes to show there's a reason that saying came up. It's a fantastic source. So fish are the big ones. Eggs, as I had mentioned. Try to avoid, like, marketing in grocery stores is so, it makes me mental, because they'll say injected with omega-3s, because people think omega-3, yeah, cool, I want to have that egg. But I mean, they miss the fact that it's grain-fed source where their birds are actually eating a whole bunch of junk with that too. So yeah, you might have injected it with more omega-3s, but in doing so, you've kind of negated the whole purpose of a whole food, right? To answer your other question again, algae, eggs, those are good sources. When we're talking about supplements, the thing I want everybody to be really, really concerned with is don't confuse supplement with substitute. Because oftentimes people just pop pills, and the way our body works is it's a whole organic system. This is where that HLC, holistic lifestyle coaching, things in. We're a whole system. So if we're eating whole foods that have omega-3s, that's going to be a heck of a lot better for you. Your body's going to know what to do with that rather than just a fish oil capsule. Not to say that that's bad. That can be a supplement, but that's exactly what it is. It's not a substitute. You still have to eat real food in order to benefit from all of those nutrients. So yes, omega-3s or fish oils, try to avoid the 369 complex. People think, oh, there's more, let's get it. No, and multivitamins are really bad for this too. When you go to the shelf and you see 369, we get enough of the 6 and the 9 in our processed foods. The omega-3s are where we want to stay on. So omega-3s, fish oil, that kind of stuff is bang on for supplements go. Okay.
All right. Great to know. We've got one more slide, obviously talking about nutrition, and then we'll jump to some questions. There are a couple in the queue here. Keep them coming. Yeah, diets versus habit-based nutrition. What are we talking about?
All right. Well, diets, again, I alluded to this in the early part of the presentation, is that diets just don't work. They're geared towards 3 things typically. I did this fun little fact here. Look at this. Look at that. So this is number 1. Diets rely on cutting things out, and crazy ass diets. So it's just not feasible for us to cut things out. Generally speaking, it's way easier to add in. The second point, why diets don't work, they rely on strict rules that are, set up for like a general public, and they don't treat you like you. You're an individual. You have a completely different chemical makeup than the next guy, or girl. And we want to be mindful about that. So that's why diets don't really work. And then they fail to address the actual change psychology, which is a good segue into the next point. Habit-based nutrition is about changing your relationship with food. Oftentimes we're eating food and we don't even really know. Like I'll ask that in some of my coaching clients, and I can see some of you on here. And the question I ask, okay, so why did you have that meal? And 9 times out of 10 people they're stumped. They don't actually know why they were eating. Well, I Don't know. Were you hungry? No. Okay. So that's the first thing. So habit-based nutrition is changing your relationship so that when you're eating things that give you ultimate fuel for, like in this case, performance. When we start talking about the tips, like on the slide here, eating slowly and mindfully is going to help us actually gauge whether or not we're hungry. It takes 20 minutes for satiety, so the feeling of our body to be full. It takes 20 minutes from the time that you start eating. So you tell me, if you're running out the door down in a breakfast sandwich, are you really processing that food? No, you're going to be in a state of fight or flight, stress. Your body isn't going to digest that type of food anyways, because it's highly processed, and your body's just going. It's focusing on other things. It's not actually focusing on the process of eating, which needs to be addressed if we want to digest. It's not what we eat, it's what we digest. That's where it comes down to. So with a habit-based nutrition, just sitting down and having that as an act, it's tough. Like, I know it takes a lot of effort, especially when I started first really looking that few years back. It took a lot of time to sit down. You have to really make a conscious effort of like putting your utensils down, sitting, engaging in conversation, being off screens. How many of us are sitting there texting or watching TV or something while we're eating? That's not mindful eating. That's not allowing your body to do the proper things to process that food for fuel, okay? Mm-hmm. Eating until 80% full, it goes hand in hand with the mindful thing. If it takes us 20 minutes, you only want to eat to 80% because after about 15 minutes, you think, oh, cool, I could still wolf down that half of the plate. And then if you just sit for 5 minutes, guess what? There you go. You're now full. You didn't have to have another bite, right? And the tendency for us is that we overeat. That's not just with weight loss athletes that I work with, but it's also for people that just want to feel light. How many of us have gone out on stage where we're really, really heavy? That's not a good feeling. I know if I'm drumming and I feel like I just ate an entire burger or two, it doesn't go well, right? We want to feel light. We want to have that energy, and a key to that is eating to 80% so that we maintain it. And with the proper food, you're going to fuel that, and you're going to feel like you're on fire, right? Again, key point, leafy greens, lean protein. If you're not an animal carnivore, if you're not an animal eater, there's lots of different good, healthy, lean protein sources through tofu and legumes. And there's a lot of stuff. Again, if you have more questions on the vegetarian side of things, be happy to help you. I'm plant-based myself. I do eat meat, but I am plant-based. I would say 90%, maybe 85, 90% of my diet is plant-based, right? So we want to make sure that you're getting less processed food, more whole food, whether or not that's vegan or vegetarian. It's up to you. It's your choice, right?
Love it. Okay, questions. We've got a few here. I will really quickly, because it's music. Cadence Weapon, one of the best rappers in the country, was on a podcast. It's called Trampoline Hall. I do recommend it. It doesn't all have to do with this. But Cadence Weapon, aka Rolly Pemberton, did a presentation. The podcast episode is called Soul Food, where he talks about his relationship with food and his diet, and a lot of the things Mike just talked about food as nutrition and fuel for the body, but then also gets into some funny stuff about just his family's relationship with food. It's a great listen. Highly recommended. Rolly Pemberton, Soul Food, episode of the Trampoline Hall podcast. So Mike, you may have seen this one here, and it may be one that we should send over to our friend Teresa. But David's wondering if you've got references for approaches to voice conditioning in performance. It sounds like he's going for the Nick Cave type.
I can see it.
Yeah. Basically, any advice on this, or do you think I should reach out to David and get him an answer from a vocal coach?
You know what? Tamara, who's going to be on the CCMA, she's great. She deals with a lot of this too. A lot of it comes down to inflammatory foods. If you're going to have things like sugar and milk and processed foods, that's not going to do any good for the instrument in your throat. When we think about having good control through vocals, it's just the same as having good control through the rest of your body. the muscles in your throat and in your neck, they work the same way as the ones down here in your hands and your legs. If you're fueled up, you've got good hydration, and you've got good green sources, and you've got good omegas happening, like all systems go, you've got good fluid happening, you're going to have more control, and you're going to be able to control your muscles regardless of where they are in your body anyway. Now, looking at the question here, I'm just going to try to read through just to make sure that I can address everything here. Not harmful to the instrument. Yeah. So you want that growl. So that's a control thing. That's more of a technique thing, in my opinion. As far as the fuel goes, it comes down to anti-inflammatory food and lots of hydration. The key to most things, drink water. When I was a kid, I used to think that when I grew up, adult drinks were like alcohol and coffee, and then I became an adult and realized it's water. That's the adult drink, water, guaranteed. You're never gonna do. I like putting a pinch of lemon or lime in it as well to kind of flavor it up. And first thing in the morning, my first go-to, and we'll talk about some habits that you guys can start to implement into your day. Really simple one is the first thing you do. Pour a warm glass of water with a little bit of lemon in there. Hydrate your body. You've just been sleeping for up to 8, maybe 10 hours, depending on who you are. You're dehydrated because you're breathing. So if you treat your instrument with hydration, it's going to be much, much better because your body is just you're naturally, your cells are made up of water. So that would be my biggest thing. And then reaching out to I know Tamara is really great. Teresa's another option for you too. So reaching out to a vocal coach that can help you with that technique will really, really help.
Bam. And nice segue on hydration. Patty's wondering about outdoor performances, especially summer festival time is here. I guess outside of, I'll put the words into your mouth, outside of keeping very, very well hydrated, any other tips on how people can stay safe and comfortable outdoors? Absolutely. I think a lot of it comes down to the dryness, especially if you're performing in the sun, that you don't realize how much the thermal. So when we come back to those stresses, that's where thermal will come into play. So you're naturally going to be more stressed because of your external environment. So what you have to do is you have to think about, how can I recharge and refuel myself so that when the stress expenditure is happening during the day, when you're kind of shaking hands and meeting people out in the hot sun and in the elements, but then you're also performing. If you're not under a tent, you've got to stay hydrated. That's the biggest thing. That's the most obvious one. But really watching and being mindful about how you're speaking. You don't want to be shouting because again, it's going to be amplified, no pun intended, with how your performance goes, because you're in the dry elements. It's gonna be easier for your body to break down because you're exposed to that hot heat and humidity, and it's uncomfortable for the body. And playing sports is the same way. You have to just be very mindful with it. So hydration would be key, and then doing mindful exercises where I call it working in instead of working out, where we do a little bit more meditation work and we do a little bit more stress relaxation work, which we can get into some of the tools here today too. Love it. All right. Keep the questions coming. Actually, one just popped into moderation a second ago. But here we go. Performance mindset. So I guess we've kind of been uniting the body and mind throughout here, but jumping into it. And another quote here to start us off. Who's Dr. Wayne Dyer? Dr. Wayne Dyer. This guy is a thought leader. This guy, one of my favorites. I've studied a lot of Dyer stuff when it comes to positive affirmation and really getting rid of limiting beliefs. And that's where 90% of this, it doesn't matter how great you are at working out, it doesn't matter how well you eat. If you don't have the actual flip of the switch in your head that you're going to be a superstar, you're never going to be a superstar. So determine what you believe is impossible and then just change your beliefs. It's simply put, is that you are completely capable of doing anything. Your mind, you are not your mind. That's another quote that I like to use. A lot of us get hinged on our stories of the past and what our upbringing was. Like, how many times have you heard, oh, I'm Scottish, so it's born in me to drink, or something silly like that. It's like, yeah, cool. You're also a human, and you either don't know or you don't care. You've identified that is something there. So now if you're not willing to make the changes,
it tells me that you're not willing to make the changes. It's not that you can't. You can or can't. It doesn't matter. You're right? So when we talk about musicians as athletes, in a lot of my research, I come from a performance athlete background. I worked with Olympic athletes. I've worked with myself as training for that as well. So I know firsthand what the athlete mindset is, and it's absolutely 100% the same as a musician mindset. We have a pregame. Typically, as a musician, it's booze. It's right. That's pre-gaming. We got a bucket of beers and stuff like that, and that's the way to go. It's starting to change, which is really, really positive, where people are getting more mindful and taking themselves a little bit more seriously. Mm-hmm. But there's also a post game, drinks and nachos, or shouting, or going out to the after party. That's the post game. So there's a lot of things that are there. A lot of people don't know what event tapering is. That's an unfamiliar term for some. And event tapering is like if we've got a competition, say as an athlete, we've got a fight, or if we've got a competition for a track meet or something like that, or a game as a hockey player or something like that. That's the event, and we want to make sure that we're ramping up our exercise and our nutrition into that event. For us on the tour, we want to make sure that show 1 is here. Maybe we got show 2 here. So we look at the schedule, and we don't just like make it up on the spot. We actually put a game plan together in order to be on our top performance for each thing, like recovery days. We make sure we're eating the right foods. We're making sure we're in bed at the right time. We're making sure, the itinerary is all there. It's very important. And then the last one is superstitions. We all have those superstitions. My lucky pair of sticks, those they go where I go. T-shirt, you've got maybe you wear your watch on your left wrist, or you've got some sort of a habit that is something that you just believe in, right? And that's very, very important in creating the rituals. 9 times out of 10, if we create that ritual, it starts to build up that behavior process that we talked about in the nutrition section. And then it applies it to the entire full array of our performance. So now we've started with nutrition. We've got a morning ritual of getting lemon water in, and maybe movement. We go for a walk around the block, or we'll get in. I've got a 5-minute flow you guys can check out, where it's just 5 minutes of getting movement happening. So building that ritual, it goes to when we actually get onto the stage, we've got a ritual ingrained. It's the behavior that we know that in order to have the best possible outcome, we have to put the practice in. You can't just make it up. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where that slide goes with the importance of creating rituals. So
bang on. What was I going to say? Oh, and great piece in the current, where are we? July-August issue of Canadian Musician by Dr. Johnson about how athletic concepts can apply to your musical performance. Check that out, nwcmarket.com. Here we go. Yes, back to channeling stress, or not just channeling, but transitioning, turning stress from a liability into an asset. Let's jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll pick the lowest hanging fruit here. The one that I see with artists, I've listed a bunch. Passive relaxation is great. Box breathing exercise, if you're sitting at a desk job or if you're sitting there, this one's really great. You basically take your inhale. So if you guys are sitting here watching on your device or on your desktop, you can do the passive relaxation on your own. It's like tracing. So you go in, hold, exhale, hold, right? So that's a passive active relaxation. The challenge I have with this, especially for creatives, is that we have very, very, oh, look at the kitty, like we're all over the place. So this one is prone to getting distracted because our thoughts are really off on that. So that's why I say going with the lowest hanging fruit for artists and for creatives, I've seen most success with an active relaxation. Why active? Because when we contract our muscles really, really hard. I'll explain what the technique is here. We contract our muscles really, really hard in a sequence. And in doing so, we change the overall, we're able to relax beyond the body's baseline is the best way to put it. So when we experience all that anxiety, our baseline is right here. So when we squeeze, we take it up above that baseline, and then when we relax, we drop back down below that, so that we're our body is just like completely relaxed. The best part about the active thing too, that you don't necessarily get with the passive, is that with active, your brain is focused on contracting muscles. So there are no room for thoughts about what you're going to have for dinner or what you're going to do out on that performance or how many people you got to text after the show. None of that has room because your body is so focused on contracting the muscles. So let's get kind of into it so everybody has an idea of how this works. And it's not just me talking here as a talking head. I want everybody to squeeze their hands all the way up to the arms. That's the only thing we're going to squeeze. We're going to squeeze that as hard as we possibly can. And we're going to focus on just the arms. We're still breathing perfectly fine. In through the nose. Exhale back out. And in doing so, we'll take another 2 big breaths here. General rule of thumb is about 30 seconds each piece, but again, when you're first starting, 10 seconds is fine. And then after this, we just relax, let your body go, okay? The second area, we're gonna bring the shoulders up to the ears, so we're gonna engage through the neck and into the shoulders, and that's the only point, okay? We're just gonna shrug up. So I look like a goofball. I've done this on the world stage too. This is both in Australian Music Week and Canadian Music Week. They had a big camera on me. It's hilarious. Big goofy guy just squeezing. So again, keep your breath. That's the important part here is relax every other part of your body. You're focusing all the energy just right now into the shoulders and up into your traps. 3, 2, 1. Relax. Back down. You should start to feel something coming through the body. It's like it's feeling a little bit more relaxed. The next one's my favorite. If you're wearing contacts, this one I've learned the hard way. Don't squeeze your eyeballs too hard. Otherwise, you lose contact. But what we're going to do is like you've just sucked on a big lemon. You're going to squeeze your face real hard. Okay? It's really important. I'll talk after. Try to breathe. One more breath. So we hold a lot of tension, as you can feel. That one is usually gets the most reaction. We hold a lot of tension in our face and up in through here. Being that we're communicators, we can get into the whole chakra system. That's what I really, really study. And our stresses, being that we're great communicators and we're holding back, sometimes we hold all that stress up here in the head. Also our vision. So like if we're unsure of where we're going, a lot of tension gets held up in this area. That's why in those 2 areas, we see the biggest result, okay? The next one here is kind of tricky. We're going to go into the chest and abdomen. We're going to tighten everything up. It's really, really tough to do that and still breathe. So you want to still breathe.
Oh, God.
Tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I should turn my camera on in solidarity, but maybe a bit.
All right. I know, right? I'm the only goofball here. That's okay. I'm good with that. Everybody else is in the comfort of their own home, and I don't get to check them out until I actually work with the artists. It's really hilarious. I get group pictures of them squeezing their faces. 3, 2, 1. Okay, relax that. And then last but not least, if you're sitting down, this one's really easy. The trick, I will warn, if you're prone to cramping or you don't have a lot of water in you, your feet will probably cramp up. And that goes away eventually. It's just that we don't generally use our foot muscles as much as we should. So this is a good sign. If you do start to cramp, you got to do some more stretching. So get in touch with me, okay? We're going to squeeze everything from our hips down. So you're going to squeeze your groin together. You're going to squeeze your butt. You're going to squeeze your quads. You're going to engage everything. And then you're going to curl your toes back. Dig them into the ground if you can. And this one, because we're huge, huge muscles here, this gives us a really good response too. So afterwards, again, still breathing. And this is, again, the active relaxation. This is how I start most of my movement preps with any artist before the show because it helps them get into, okay, now we're ready to go. And then we can get into movement because they're a little bit more relaxed and they don't have that anxiety of the show. 3, 2, 1, relax. Okay? So if you remember how the body felt before you did that to where you are now, think of a scale of 1 to 10 and level of stress. 10 is being super stressed, you don't know what you're going to do, to where you are right now. And hopefully it moved down a couple points. If not, it might take a couple more times because you're super, super stressed. And that's okay too. Like, that's what we're here for. So moving through with the imagery thing, all I wanted to kind of say with that is that after I do something like this, where we get them into artists before the show, we get them into a relaxed state of mind. Now we can visualize the perfect performance. So instead of just visualizing, I want you to think about what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, what you see, and what you feel. Whether or not you're a lyricist, you're going up to the microphone, you feel the electricity off the mic, you sip of water before the show, picking up the drumsticks, turning up the amp, everything that goes into your performance. I need you to kind of get into the imagery of what a perfect performance goes like. And then before you know it, you step out on stage and it all happens. It's amazing, right? So that's all I want to talk to you about that there, Andrew.
Oh, love it. Making great time here. 3 pro tips for peak performance. We'll walk through these and then get back to questions. If you've got some, send them in. There's 3 great ones waiting in the queue. I'm looking forward to hearing Mike's response. But yeah, tip number 1, let's roll.
Yeah, absolutely. So these ones are kind of like anticlimactic in a sense, and I know that, and it's intentional. Is that the 3 pro tips to peak performance come back to you being a peak performer, but in your day-to-day lives, like who you surround yourself with. Like there's a saying out there that whoever's in your corner, you're the product of the 5 people you most hang out with. Okay, so if those people aren't going to be conducive to your lifestyle goals, like you don't want to go to the bar for wings and beer, you don't want to go out after the show with the party lifestyle, you want to actually get into bed, you got to surround yourself. And it's not about completely cutting people out of life. It's about finding, like, showing up a little bit later to that party and then leaving a little bit earlier, if that makes a good analogy. You want to spend your time and protect your time because you're the only one that has to live with yourself your entire life. Okay, so if you're not in a good place, you're not going to be able to show up better for the people around you. Okay, so I want you to focus on who's in your corner. Make sure that those people are positive influences. I'm one. So like if you're like, oh, I don't have anybody as positive, I'm one right here. Andrew's one right there. Like you've got positive influences. You just have to reach out. And it doesn't have to be an in-person thing. That's another thing people get lost on, is that if you listen to podcasts and you want to get into some motivational speaking and you want to get into those positive influences in your life, you need to like reach out. I'll direct you to a ton of different people that are thought leaders like Dyer, that are thought leaders like Kelly Starrett, like people that are really positive, and they're going to put you in a good elevated sense of emotion for your day-to-day so that you go into situations feeling a lot better. Okay. The second point is sweat, laugh, and show gratitude. The best 2 words anybody can actually realize are thank you. I don't think that we spend enough time saying thank you. I think we spend, especially as Canadians, saying sorry a lot. And instead of saying sorry, find a way to change that statement to thank you. Sorry I'm late. Thank you for your patience. Same thing, right? Exactly the same thing. It's an elevated emotion. If you say thank you, you're showing gratitude. And once you show gratitude, it is absolutely life-changing. You wake up and you say thank you for what you're there for. A lot of people don't have the opportunity to wake up, and even just waking up is a big thing for some people. So treat that with absolute respect. Be thankful, sweat once, move, get exercise. Our bodies are meant to move. However that means. If you want to go for a walk, go for a run, hit the gym, hit yoga, boxing, whatever it is. Sweat once, laugh once, because happiness is contagious, and the happier we all are, we're going to do better things in the world, right? And then the 1% rule. This is my favorite thing. Anybody who's watched the presentation with me has heard this before. It is not an all or nothing concept. Not fitness, not wellness, whatever that means to you, not nutrition, not mindset. It's not like, okay, I'm crap now, I need to do all of these. No, it's 1%. If you can work on yourself and increase your progress 1% each day, I want you to think of a timeline where your 0 is like you're dead, okay? And 100% is your ideal self. Where are you on that timeline today? Think about that number. It's rhetoric. But then less that number from 100, and you are only that many days away from your ideal self if you work at it 1% a day. I'll say that again. 1% a day, and you are your ideal self. from where you are today. So if you're 60%, you're fine in 40 days. Work out at 1%. So it's a super cool concept to really alleviate. And then when we come back to, this is kind of a roundabout way of wrapping up that bit of turning positive thinking from anxiety. So using stress as our thing, we get wrapped up. I'm only 40% out of 100. Well, great. That's only 60 freaking days before you're your ideal self. Then what, buddy? Right? Like you got a lot to go for it from there. So work at it 1% a day and realize you got great people around you. Sweat, laugh, and say thank you.
Love it. Well, I guess I'll already got to laugh and we'll get to thank you momentarily. Let's jump to some questions here. And I'll tell you what, we'll set up this slide just to give you a few resources. We'll walk through it momentarily. But here we go. Questions. Alexandria, great having you. Any advice on extended tours overseas where food can often turn into a quick gas station to go meal? And maybe I'll just add on to that, yeah, when you are overseas and maybe not familiar with or can't find some of the staples that you're used to, any tips would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I believe it was the first article I wrote for Canadian Musician where we did talk about what to take on the tour. One of the big things, if this is possible, I'm not sure, Alexandria, if this is possible for you, but oftentimes it is, and it's something I encourage with all the artists that I work with, is bring a cooler. Bring a cooler and hit a market. That if that's not a feasible thing for you, because there are resources in other countries too, but hey, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and you got to go to that gas station. There are ways to read labels. So there are ways to actually increase your likelihood of eating the best choice possible. Again, where we're talking about that 1% and we talk about progress, one thing that I work with all of my coaching clients on is nutrition is not good food versus bad food. We want to eliminate that. That sets ourselves up for a bad relationship with food because we think that cake is bad. No, it's not. It's just not going to be as beneficial to you as a good green salad. But in the event of the cake versus cocaine, cake looks really good, right? That's a really, really sharp example. But at the same time, when you're in the gas station, there are oftentimes, I see it all the time now, they've got bananas, they've got good kind bars. Like you want to be careful with some of the actual to-go bars. Like some of them are wrapped up in this little bundle of, this looks awesome, but it's actually a ton of sugar. And the sugar crashes are the things that gas food or gas station food is really notorious for, that you'll pick up and then you'll crash, and then you pick up and you'll crash. You're riding this roller coaster of emotions for your entire tour. So the best thing I can recommend is stay with your water, stay with your tea, and then find where applicable, the healthiest, most raw type of food. Because if you are in the gas station thing, there are good there are better foods than not. You just have to be mindful about it and be forgiving for yourself that you have to eat some gas food. That's okay, right? It's as long as it's not 100% of the time, you're going to be fine. It's about picking the best option at the time with what you have to work with.
Bang on. Circling back to eating to 80% full. Interesting one. Thanks, Everett. He has been doing this for the last few weeks. Lately, he's noticing that it's taking much less food to reach what feels like 80% full. Is that normal? And he notes that he's quote unquote overweight.
Yeah. Hey, Ev, nice to see you on here, buddy. It is completely normal because what your body is getting used to is that just like it was normal for people that are overweight to eat mindlessly and until they're 120% full, your body starts to realize that, oh, okay, I don't actually need all of this caloric intake because we're eating better food. So the thing with food to remember is that there's high caloric density food and high nutritional density food. So take a piece of cake, we'll use that cake thing, and then take an apple, same size. Which one has more calories? Cake. Which one has more nutrients? Apple. What does your body actually crave? The nutrients or the calories? It's actually the nutrients. So if you're eating food that is generally more nutrient dense, you're going to end up eating less, needing less before your body goes, okay, I'm good. I got enough energy for the day. So your satiety will kick in quicker. That's the science behind it. The other bit of it is that you're just being more mindful. you're more mindful about the food that you're eating. And I've seen your progress, Ev, and it's been amazing. And I just encourage you to keep on going with that, because that overweight thing is not going to be too long, man. You're going to be fine and fit in no time at all, as long as that little habit of starting to notice your 80% gets smaller and smaller, because your body is just getting more in tune. It's becoming a more effective machine.
Love it. We've got one that just rolled in here. I've just got to read through it to make sure it's something we can touch on.
Cool.
Oh, well, it is just a nice comment that I will make sure to share with you. Thank you for that, David. I'm very grateful that you joined us and that you relayed that on to Mike. I will get that to you after. Yeah, that wraps us up here. If any other questions seep through, I will be happy to send those to Mike's attention, or you can yourself with the information that's right here. So first off, we want to give a shout out to Unison, unisonfund.ca. Mike's done a lot of work with them, as have we at Canadian Musician. We're huge supporters of what they do. Is there anything you wanted to note about specific resources or anything they've got on offer?
Yeah, I ask everybody here, if you are a music maker, you don't have to be a musician per se. It's anybody in the music community. It's registration is free. What they provide are not only the blog and resources for all the stuff that we've talked about in the past. I've been a contributing author to their blog, and we've got a lot of really great resources in there: mental wellness, physical well-being, counseling services, endless things that are all like not necessarily just like counseling like you're going to harm somebody else. It's like marriage counseling, or it's like my kids are bratty. How do I, do child support? Like anything and everything that you as a music maker needs, they've got a resource for. They also do emergency fund relief. So if you do find yourself in a dire circumstance, you can reach out and they will help you through the rough times. So it's it's silly if you're in the music community and you don't have a registration with Unison Fund. So I strongly encourage anybody who isn't familiar to tap into unisonfund.ca and go register yourself up, and then register before you need it, because when you need it, it's like simple as that. They get it out to you as soon as you ask. So it's absolutely something I stand by. I love working and I love supporting that group. They're a great bunch of people over there, and it's all privately sponsored. So it's if you want to contribute and help them out, there's lots of ways to do that. Just head to the website.
Okay, and before we go through Mike's contact here, friendsofjohncody.com. John Cody spelt like you'd expect. Someone that Unison has been supporting and helping us with this. Yeah, he's one of ours. Really ugly set of circumstances. Visit the site. You can go through that, and if there's anything you can do to help us out, please do. friendsofjohncody.com. The Rock Doctor himself, Mr. Schwartz, rockdoctor.com. Email is there too. Follow on socials. Yeah, let us know. What are some of the things that people can come knocking on your door for?
Absolutely anything, my man. Again, thank you so much for everybody's attention and paying attention to yourselves. I want you to thank yourselves for doing this, because like I said earlier, I haven't worked a day in my life. This is something I'm super passionate about. If you want to contact me on anything that we've talked about, or if you want to just reach out, and maybe you've got a friend that needs a little bit of the encouragement. I'm a motivational speaker. That's what I do here. I'm here to help you. I'm not going to fix you. It's a willingness from those people that want to reach out to me. I am more than happy to help direct you in the right professional guidance. I'm not the sole answer, that's for sure. You can find me on Instagram for a lot of the tips that we talked about with regards to just videos and clips and just insight towards how to correct or how to reduce some of that pain. I do online coaching. I do face-to-face coaching. I work with artists across Canada, across Australia as well now too, to go on tours or go into sessions. So there's a lot of different ways that I can help you. And if I can't, like I said, I'm more than happy to help point you in the direction for the next person that would be more suitable for what you're looking for. I just need to have an idea of what you're after, and then we can kind of take it from there. So overall, just say hi. I'm a friendly guy. Just reach out and say what's up. If this touched you, be sure to share it with people. Help spread the word. I've also got a podcast where I interview artists and industry members on their experiences and help to promote the whole health and well-being, because I feel it is very, very important. The landscape of the music industry is changing now that we're all basically self-governed artists. We have a lot less time. We don't have a whole team behind us all the time, and it can be very overwhelming. And I can speak from experience that the stress and anxiety and all of that builds up, and it shows itself in eating crap and then having injuries, and then we just give up. And I don't want anybody to ever give up. I think that there is always hope in there. And even though you may have tried millions of different things, you haven't tried this. So reach out and take that first step. In order to get the second, third, fourth step, you got to take that first one.
I love it. And on a high note, again, more gratitude. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Like Mike said, you get an email in the next 24, maybe 48 hours that's got a link to a recording of the session. You can revisit it, share it, whatever you like. And of course, nwcwebinars.com. If you head there, you can sign up, register for future sessions. You can also access the archives with all of our previous webinars. Mike's will be there shortly. Thank you. Thank you very much to everybody. This has been great. Mike, you're a hero. Great having you.
Thank you so much, guys. Again, make sure you're laughing, make sure you're sweating, make sure you're saying thank you, and it's 1% every day. You guys got this, all right? Thank you so much for your time.
All right, we're out.